This is the iPhone 13 Pro. Yo guys, wait, just give me a second. I'm just trying to think about what I should say in this review. There's just so little that's been changed. Okay. Well, design-wise, the camera layout has been changed from vertical to diagonal as the bottom lens has been moved in position. What else? Well, I mean, the notch on the front of the iPhone is like slightly smaller, not for any functional purpose, just new design makes it look newer, more appealing to buyers. That's the design. Okay, that was fun. What else? Well, the build, design and build, they usually come hand in hand. It is basically the same. Glass, back and front, aluminum frame, feels high quality, premium, a very light phone. But believe it or not, it's slightly thicker, very slightly, unnoticeably thicker, and slightly heavier, unnoticeably heavier than last year because there's a bigger, better battery in there. Now to me, to be honest, like, do I care whatsoever about this increase in thickness and weight? No. A better battery here is a pure positive. So let me get into that in a second, but jokes aside about this phone being very similar to last year, this isn't a bad thing because last year the iPhone 12 was a very liked phone and it was a very good phone and it offered a lot for the value. This phone, being a slight improvement, is still an improvement, and it's a nice phone. A phone that, against its competition, has one of the best battery life in a smartphone. It's significantly improved. I've never killed this phone in a day. I've always had a little bit left over at the end of the day, even with heavy usage, so that's good. And I reckon with light usage, it could last you a day and a half. The iPhone 13 Pro is even better. This one isn't at the 13 Pro's level, but this one is at a high level, and it's a very, very good battery. So if battery is an important feature to you, especially in a budget phone, then this definitely offers that. In terms of screen time, I was getting, I'd say, about 6 hours. I feel like the Pro would max out at 7 hours absolute maximum, but this about 6, and that was really good. So since we're looking at the internals, another internal new feature is the new processor. Now this is standard every year, new processor, new numbers. So last year was the A14 Bionic, this year's the A15 Bionic. Same chip that goes into the 13 Pro, it's just a slightly weaker version of it because it's got less cores. By the looks of it, the most powerful chip in a smartphone. Yes, that sounds good, and yes, it performs well, but is it noticeably different in comparison to competition? Not really, but is it more future-proof? I would think so. But at this point, the question isn't really, is it more noticeable in terms of the performance of the phone? Because phones aren't going to come out being slow these days. The standard's quite high, but this processor allows for more complicated features to take place, such as cinematic mode, which is something I'll explain in a minute. But it allows for features that require a lot of efficiency and a lot of power, so having a processor like this is very good. But yeah, other than the cameras, which I'm going to get into in a minute, this is about it in terms of changes. It doesn't have a 120Hz display, which is kind of disappointing because that is below the industry standard now, even for phones which are more budget. And this one isn't even like really a budget phone. It's $750, so you know that's still relatively expensive. But I do have to say that loss of a 120Hz display was arguably made up in the production of the new cameras. It's a very good camera, but it hasn't gotten nearly as high of an update as the 13 Pro did. You know, the Pro got macro camera in the ultra wide. It got a 3x telephoto. The photos, the sensors were just on another level. But this is still a very, very good camera and one of the best in the smartphone, both in videos and photos. The two sensors on the back are an ultra wide and a main on this phone, and they're both 12 megapixel sensors. And then, you know, for people who know about phone cameras, they know that a lot of the work is in the image processing, in the software. And a nice option here is now with the 13 series, it gives you the option of having different styled photos as soon as you open the phone. So you get a more contrasty option, you get more warmer photos option, and a more cooler option. So you can choose your option. I chose contrast because I love a little contrast in the photos. It makes it look better in my opinion. You know, that's up to you, but I reckon that's the best option. And then also for software, you get cinematic mode, which was the smart feature we were talking about earlier. It's basically portrait video, but it's a very good version of it. And it has this cool feature where If you've got somebody staring at the camera, they're in focus. If they turn around to somebody behind them, automatically that person behind them is in focus. If they turn around back to the camera, they're in focus again. The portrait mode also has a very good sense of how intense the bokeh should be depending on how far the subject is from the camera. So it ends up looking pretty nice. It's far from perfect, but I reckon it's got a lot of potential. And one of the coolest things about it I really like is afterwards you can edit what is in focus and you can choose the intensity of the blur. So it's very nice to have that kind of control in video. It's an extra step forward because so far all these sort of smart features have been directed to photos, so it's nice to see it in videos and hopefully improvements in the future. But looking at the videos, iPhone still remains one of, if not the best video camera on a phone. And you can see the dynamic range is nice, the detail is good, there's not too much over sharpening, it deals with the range in light very well, the colors are looking nice. Overall, the video is processed very nicely. In terms of the photos, it's also a very good photo camera. If we look at the product shots, it looks nice in the ultra wide, but if we look at the main, you can see there's a lot of background blur, and that's because the sensor is even bigger this time around, and so that background blur is natural instead of having to use portrait. But then if you do use portrait, this is the sort of thing you'd be getting. But just looking at the shots, you can see that they're overall pretty nice. I mean, the colors are good, the contrast is good, there's good dynamic range, so you know, there's good detail in the shadows, there's good detail in the highlights, and it's overall very nice photos. You know, if you know much about how smartphone cameras work, a lot of the work goes in the image processing, not in the actual hardware. The hardware is obviously important, but a lot of it goes into the software and how the software processes the images and makes them look even better and enhances them. For some phones that includes adding a lot of sharpening or that kind of thing. With Apple, I feel like they balance everything very well, and then you can see the detail for yourself in the final image and you can kind of make your own judgment. Now to conclude, it's a good phone. If you're looking for a high-end but more budget iPhone, then this is a nice option, but it's hard to recommend because there's the 12, which is going to be a bit cheaper and offer pretty much the exact same thing and less battery life. The battery life is probably the most convincing update for the average consumer that I think, because I think if you're getting the 12 or the 13 anyway, then you don't really care enough about that slight camera upgrade to get the 13 over the 12. But maybe the battery might push you over. Or I think more reasonably you should wait until next year until we get more updates with the 14, even if you're on a phone before the 12. And obviously if you're on the 12, don't even consider getting this phone. It's not really worth it. But basically what I'm saying is it's a nice phone. It is a very good phone if you're looking for a high-end budget iPhone. But if you have a little bit of patience, you can get a phone for better value next year. Or you could compromise just a little slightly, mainly on the battery life, and get a cheaper 12. But I do have to say again, it is a good phone. But that's my analysis, that's my opinion. Take it for what you will, make your own decision. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and give this video a like and comment for the sake of the algorithm. Check out my Instagram at El-Naggar for behind the scenes perspective and just, keeping up to date. I'm getting some new iOS 15 icons out soon, so stay tuned for that. And, things like sample images of the iPhone, other interesting things. Anyway, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Salam.